have the privilege of getting to share the stage tonight with my amazing wife. And I want to share something that happened early on in our marriage. We'd been married about 3 or 4 months, and we were poor, broke college students living in a basement, as all good stories start. And she had just recently gotten home from the grocery store and put some groceries away, and you know, we'd had to go a couple days without milk because it was that time of life. And I grabbed the milk out of the fridge and I took a little drink, and I realized, oh, this gallon's no good. We can't have this gallon of milk. And I told her, I said, hey, there's something wrong with this gallon of milk. She goes, oh, okay, let me taste it. She took a taste and realized, it's totally fine. What are you talking about? And it was at that point I realized I hadn't shared something really important with her. And so I needed to share something with her. Napoleon Dynamite came out at the absolute perfect time in my life. I was 15 years old in high school, and Napoleon just went gangbusters throughout the whole country. At 15, I had a really good friend named Devin who had just gotten his driver's license, and we were looking for any possible excuse to go drive somewhere. So Devin, he says, hey, why don't we go see a movie? I grew up in Morgan, Utah, and so to go anywhere, you had to drive a little ways. And we were going to drive down to Layton and go see a movie. So back in those days, we pull out the newspaper to check the listings for when the movie times were, and we saw this movie, Napoleon Dynamite, and I thought, oh, I've heard of this, but I don't know if I've even seen a preview. And we said, well, I don't know, let's go check it out. Napoleon Dynamite, to me, at that time, was so funny, I physically fell out of my chair while watching this movie at one point. You know when Kip backs over the Tupperware and it just explodes everywhere and he goes, dang it, and he drives off. I couldn't see, tears were falling, and I fell out of my seat. I was laughing so hard. Well, that wasn't the last time I would see this movie. In fact, about twice a week, a group of high school students somewhere in Morgan, Utah was watching this movie. And oftentimes I was a part of that. Well, at one point in the movie, Napoleon is in FFA. And does anybody remember what Napoleon's doing in FFA? Yeah, milk tasting, right? Yeah, he does this milk tasting thing, and he goes, oh, it tastes like a cow got in an onion patch. And I was watching this movie with a lot of FFA kids at the time. Again, Morgan, Utah, right? And I kind of tapped my friend that was sitting in front of me and said, that's really funny that's what they think FFA is. And she turned around and looked at me and she said, I'm doing that competition. And at that point I realized, wait, this is a real thing? You can actually do what Napoleon's doing? And I thought that was the coolest idea in the world. I said, can I do it? And she says, Kyle, you're not an FFA. I changed that the next day at school. I went walking into our FFA advisor and I said, I need to join FFA. And he goes, okay. Sure, what piqued your interest? And I had to tell him. And he goes, we're just happy you're here, right? So I get enrolled in FFA, and my friend comes to me and says, all right, awesome. We've got practice Thursday after school. Practice? For what are we going to do at practice? And I was like, what do you mean? She said, well, it's a competition. We got to taste some milk, and we got to identify cheese, and we have to taste different dairy products and tell if it's artificial or real dairy products. And I went, wait, there's more food than just milk? This is a 15-year-old's dream. I was so excited to go to this practice after school and just hang out with friends and eat food. So I have to admit, though, I wasn't taking it very seriously at first. Until my friend Tana told me, hey, if we win at state, we can go to Kentucky for a week to compete at nationals. Well, I, for my entire life, have been a huge Kentucky Wildcats basketball fan. And she knew that. And she used it against me to get me to invest into this team. So I have to admit, I got a little obsessed. And I started practicing harder. And I was doing practice at home. I was learning, buying different cheeses and trying to blindfold myself and tell which one it was, and it was weird, you guys. It got beyond normal behavior. And I'm going to Kentucky. I don't care. Well, we ended up winning the state competition and getting invited to go to Kentucky. And I was like, sweet, check that off. I'm going to Kentucky. I'm going to just cruise. I've been going a little too hard with this, right? Well, Tana saw that. She saw that I was kind of slacking off, and she said, hey, Kyle, there are scholarships in FFA if you do well. And I don't know about you guys, I like free money. I think it's awesome. I'm big on that. So I got way into dairy again, and at this point they start making you take some written tests about it. I had never stepped foot on a dairy in my life, but I was going to visit dairies, and I was asking the advisor, can you print off tests from previous years for me to study? And he's like, sure, Kyle. He's handing them off to me, and I got really into it all over again. Well, we showed up at Nationals out in Kentucky, and I start sizing up the competition. I played basketball and football and track, and I was always trying to scout out how everybody was looking, right? So I walk in, and I'm like, Tennessee's looking a little strong. I think there's going to be some competition. Wisconsin, Wisconsin's good at this, right? They're in. So I'm counting, I've got about 40 teams. And there's 4 people on each team, and I'm doing the math, and I'm going, I have to place top 10 to get any, award or scholarship, and I'm starting to get nervous. But I calmed down, focused up, and we went through the competition. Well, at the end of the day, after all of this insane competitive side of me came out, bet you guys didn't know you were in the presence of a living legend, 8th place in the nation dairy food taster. I'll be signing autographs afterward, all right? But what this did is it ended up somewhat ruining dairy for me, because now my wonderful wife, who we have scrounged together a few dollars to get a gallon of milk, now has to deal with her husband not approving of this particular gallon. I did end up getting some scholarships offered to me at Snow College and Utah State, and got kind of a sweet dairy food tasting gig at Aggie Ice Cream while I was going to school. But at that point, Clyde looked at me and said, please don't ever tell anybody that story.